Some people also include poultry and red meat. But I cut out all meat except seafood at the same time I started the diet. Before embarking on the Mediterranean diet, I was a junk food queen. I was low on energy, bloated, and my skin managed to look both sallow and inflamed at once. Now I've completely converted to the Mediterranean diet lifestyle. But there are still things I wish I'd done differently when I started it. Read on for some useful tips to know before starting the Mediterranean diet. When I first decided to follow the diet, I threw myself in without really thinking about it. I didn't plan what food I'd need, prep anything in advance, or have any recipes to follow. I wouldn't recommend this haphazard technique. In the early days of the diet, I wasn't eating balanced meals, and I was clueless as to how interesting and varied my diet could be. When I've made the meal myself and prepared the food in advance, I'm far less tempted to reach for something easy and junky. This was an issue in the early days of the diet. At lunchtime, if I'd failed to prepare anything in advance, I'd end up grabbing something less healthy that I regretted later. I didn't think about that enough in those early months and spent the first few weeks feeling really light-headed. When I'm cooking my med diet-friendly meals, it typically takes me about half an hour to an hour to prepare a dish. For the first few days, I felt great, but then I had a craving for some store-bought cake, and I gave in. On the whole, I was eating far healthier than I had a week prior, but I felt like I'd failed. One of the best things about the Mediterranean diet is that after I followed it for a while, I stopped craving sugar so much. But that took time, and it doesn't mean I never treat myself to something more sugary or processed. I love cheese, but I don't think I ever appreciated the value it adds to my meals before starting the diet. I've learned that adding a sprinkling of delicious cheeses like mozzarella, feta, or parmesan to my veggie salads makes me feel like I'm not missing out on anything at all, so I always have some on hand. This whole journey has given me a more balanced diet, with protein, vegetables, and whole grains at every meal. But it's not cheating if you don't cook all of those things yourself. It's much more important to get them on the plate than it is to make them from scratch. Anyone who's cooked quinoa can tell you that it's really hard to get the consistency just right. So although it might be more expensive to get pre-cooked frozen or microwavable pouches of whole grains, it's a lot easier for me to whip them up on busy days. Starting a completely new lifestyle diet can be intimidating, especially when you start thinking about completely restocking your fridge and pantry. Chickpeas, also called garbanzo beans, butter beans, green lentils, and tuna are indispensable to my diet now, and they're usually under $1 a tin. There's nothing like the combo of yogurt, honey, and pomegranate seeds for a sweet treat, and yogurt is ideal for mixing into olive oil dressings when I want something a bit creamier. I never knew that I could make food that was as flavorful and delicious as the meals I'd tasted on trips to Greece, Italy, and Israel. But that's because I wasn't using enough herbs in my cooking. And as a bonus, the more kick I add to dishes with herbs like basil, oregano, bay leaf, and cilantro, the more my sweet tooth diminishes. If you don't have a green thumb, you can also easily swap fresh for more wallet-friendly frozen or dry varieties. Tahini is one of the most versatile cupboard ingredients, and I definitely overlooked it at the start of my journey. You can also save money by making your own tahini-based dips instead of buying supermarket varieties. Now that I've spent months and months following a Mediterranean diet, I realize I put too much pressure on myself to be inventive and exciting with every meal in the early days, which was exhausting and totally unnecessary. Last week, I could only find spinach, tomatoes, and mozzarella in my fridge, and it took me about 2 minutes to throw them all in a bowl and toss them with a drizzle of olive oil and some basil. I think the flexibility of the Mediterranean diet is one of my favorite aspects about it, and I wish I'd been less strict on myself in the early days and recognized that a bit more. For example, I used to eat vast amounts of pasta, but when I first started the diet, I cut it out completely, worrying it was too unhealthy. But now, I've learned my lesson because the diet is so much more about versatility and moderation than it is about creating perfectly healthy meals. I think the single most important ingredient in the Mediterranean diet is olive oil, which I now purchase by the bucketload. I laugh at the old me who would spend a fortune on the tiniest bottle of olive oil because that was the only one that would fit on my shelf. Now, I've dropped all pretenses. My bulk-sized olive oil sits on the countertop like the prized kitchen possession it's become.